My name is Hart Cunningham, and I'm a presidential candidate for 2020. I'd like to present a theology-based synopsis of our current president. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. The synopsis takes a closer look at the hypocrisy of Donald Trump by examining the deep divide between his stated religious views and his actions as a power-hungry hate monger. By exploring Donald's upbringing, we will determine the source of his vitriolic proclivities, his father, Fred Trump. Donald's disregard for truth is seen throughout his time as a businessman, politician, reality star, and unfortunately now, our active president. By examining these periods of DT's life, I get nauseous saying his full last name over and over again, so you have to forgive me. This synopsis attempts to uncover the deceit and disdain for righteousness that currently plagues this nation. Finally, this synopsis will discuss where we, as believers, what we can do to combat such evil from spreading. We'll start with Fred Trump. This is a man who created his empire by manipulating the New Deal. The New Deal that allowed many of the lowest economic class to have a chance. He played to the desperation of our country's economic weakest. He was a moral relativist since 1927. He was investigated by a U.S. Senate committee for wartime profiting in 1954. This man stole from vets. This man stole from our country. Those dollars should have gone into future education and healthcare by people that risked their lives for our country. His son is simply following suit. Draft dodger, manipulator. This is a family of theft. The Justice Department started the investigation of Fred for fair housing discrimination. And then in 1973, think about this, 73, I was born in 75. My father marched in the sanitation strike in Memphis, Tennessee with MLK years before that. I thought 1973 there was some progress. The Justice Department sued Trump management for discriminating against blacks. Their family has been taking advantage of minorities, or government, of any type of institution that gets in their way since day one. If we follow Donald's footsteps, we see that now his sole goal is trying to prevent competition and perpetuate his own corrupt business endeavors. Playing to his base at whatever cost. There are no ethics. Trump claims he built his real estate fortune out of $1 million loan from his father. He said that on TV, he said it on talk shows. It's his go-to. You have to realize that he was backed by his father, who had made hundreds of millions of dollars, which would now be billions, from wartime profiteering, from stealing from minorities, from bias, racist activities. So this man has simply grown and profited and based his entire success from previous loans of this type of war profiteering, stealing from our country and vets. Even so, incompetence. 6 bankruptcies. This is one of the problems with America. How can somebody do this? How can they get away with it over and over again? If somebody has one late payment on their credit card bill, they can't even get a mortgage. Yet this person can go through all these different business entities and having bankruptcy after bankruptcy. Who do you think paid that bill? Who do you think suffered? It was average Americans. It was Americans that built those different casinos. It was Americans that he owed those funds to. This theft from minorities, from the ones that trust him. You know why people trust? Is because when you go to church, and I was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, and I went to Idlewild Presbyterian Church, and I am a Presbyterian. He will claim to be a Presbyterian, and we'll get to that. But lies weren't an issue. A word was your bond. A man was only as good as his word, right? So when somebody comes in and talks so many big lies, you just assume it's all a fraud. And it was a fraud that went back generations. And we are fools to ever think otherwise. Where there's smoke, there is fire. How many has been in one lawsuit or two and it was an accident or miscommunication? This man is in 4,096 lawsuits and counting. It's simply a game. How does somebody get in that type of situation? How many people have you screwed over? How many people have you lied to? And yet, what do? We elect this fraudster president and we allow a different country to go into our teens' minds through social media. We let them use propaganda to take advantage of our insecurities, our differences, the polarization of our country. His chauvinistic attitudes toward women. He's a self-confessed sexual predator. Marla Maple, Stormy Daniels, all these different affairs. How can one say they are a Christian with this type of attitude toward life? How can someone possibly live up to the expectations of God? Pope Francis, quote, "A person focused on building walls and not bridges is not a Christian." As a society, we have an addiction to affluency. We look at it within some type of, we elevate it, and we let this man betray our minds. We let him, simply fool every type of element about his character, and it was done simply for his affluency. If this man made $30,000 a year, if he was an average Joe, if he, had the same worries that most Americans do, would we have looked at him in such regard? At the Family Leadership Summit in 2015, on asking God for forgiveness, this was the topic, this is directly at him. "I think if I do something wrong, I just try and make it right. I don't bring God into that picture." This is what our active president said. If your child said that, if your aunt said that, when you have a topic and conversation and really look at your relationship with God, this was recently. This man blurs the church and state separation for personal gain, reversing Johnson Amendment provision that prohibits tax-exempt organizations from participating in political activities, proposed then by Johnson, senator, and later revised by Congress. It keeps churches and other nonprofits from lobbying for specific causes, campaigning on behalf of politicians, and supporting or opposing candidates for office. Trying to turn a church into a super PAC so that corruption can infiltrate the church, the same way lobbyists do. So not only do you lie about your beliefs, you lie to fool people, to get the church involved, to get elected, but now you're taking the church down with your evil. You're having the church, you're allowing a level of corruption that has never existed. That two-way street of corruption going in and out that one person is causing, it bothers me. As believers, we do not worship the earth. However, we must realize that the Creator gave it to us, and we are accountable for its stewardship. The Bible says, "Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it." Not to drill, to frack, to explore, to spill, to pollute. God didn't tell us to exploit the world. He told us to take care of it. Like a good ruler, we should seek the welfare of everything God entrusts to us, including its creation, the creation. The Bible also says a righteous man cares for the needs of his animal. How many animals go extinct every single day? When I was a child, it happened once in a while, and it was this big school meeting, and we all talked about it, and we learned about it, and we had all these different fundraisers and so forth. Now it happens every 3 or 4 minutes. Thousands of species that will never see mankind again. And it's no big deal. We continue with the funding of big oil and Monsanto and gas, and we continue the denial of renewable energy. We continue it at a governmental level. The government should be leading with these initiatives, not holding the private sector back. There's a draft budget for 2019 that seeks deep budget cuts to the energy department's renewable energy. That's 72%, yet we're minting $1 trillion for more nuclear arms. How does that make sense? Every dollar is going toward the destruction of our planet. Big oil and gas tax incentive, Monsanto tax incentives, the pesticide, the GMOs, now nuclear arms. We already have 4,000 tons of plutonium, weapons grade that we can't even get rid of. Russia has the exact same amount. They actually have a lot more. We don't even know what to do with it. Yet, let's make more, let's make more, let's keep drilling, let's keep destroying this earth. As a Christian, that makes zero sense. And you know what? You are harming every other person's path to have any type of journey with their family in the future. This is obvious. The Environmental Data and Governance Initiative, the EDGI, says that several government agencies, including the EPA, that Scott Pruitt and his lies have removed or reduced any type of web content about climate change, climate science. So our government is intentionally removing data about our world, our water, our soil, our wind, our air, any type of energy, every single different type of attitude and knowledge and science about anything related to our environment. These numbers, this is entirely, I can't even really talk about this. It bothers me so much that it's like Orwellian nightmare. You can't even really get your entire mind around it. We're also having 77 million acres of federal waters within the Gulf of Mexico is about to be drilled. Every single day there's a new oil spill. It doesn't even make the major news. We have to learn about it from some other source. This Scott Pruitt recently said that climate change could be good for mankind. How much money have you taken for oil and gas? How corrupt are you? How can you even possibly state such an ignorant and incomprehensible idea? It's as if you want, they say that the biggest lies are the only ones believable, and this is the case. Backing out of the Paris Treaty, America should be a leader, take initiative in all of these different types of conflicts, initiatives, ones that bring people together about a common goal with quantifiable information. The pendulum needs to swing the opposite way. We must take care of our earth. It has to be a priority. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Isn't that one of the main things we talked about? At what age did you learn about that? I'm thinking 3 or 4. I mean, it was right up there. We're talking about Santa Claus and Easter Bunny. I mean, it's part of who you actually are. 800,000 dreamers. 800,000. These are people that know no other land. It is just hate that wants somebody to do such horrible things. Globalization is real. We want America to compete. We want the brightest. We want the strongest. We want people that want to work. We are competing against all countries. We used to have a #1 educational program, a top health program. We used to have the most dominant military. Guess what? Why was World War II lost? Okay, what did Germans and Japanese have in common? Both codes were stolen. Right? The Enigma machine on Germany was stolen, right? And then the Japanese, communication, we decrypted, okay? Information, knowledge, education, that's what wins wars. Not printing another $1 trillion, making another 1,000 nuclear weapons. We already have 2,000 or 3,000. We need to invest in tomorrow. Even if you're the biggest war hawk in the world, you should know that we should be investing in smart people. And we want the smartest coming here. Why did Einstein leave Germany, right? The exact same fascist situation and program. We want Americans to be smart, and we want to have a globalized world. There's no path for these different walls. There are only bridges. The travel ban, do we even need to get into that? Be strong in the Lord and his mighty power. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. We need to remain vigilant against the evils of this world. Assuming Mr. Trump finishes his term and is not impeached, we need new leadership in 2020. We need a new president. Whether it's me or another, I hope we are woke. I hope we understand this is not a Christian man. This is simply a man that preys on the weak, that preys on the innocent, and preys on the believers. God bless. Hart Cunningham, 2020. Appreciate and grateful for your time.